pedal to the gas, we're watching it all. Covering the courtroom, big case or small. Laugh when we can, cry when we must, but it's all real talk, you can count on us. We're not the pros, just fans who care. With popcorn in hand and a comfy chair. And every twist, we're right there. Together like we're all in the witness chair. This is the Broken Baker, where the trials come alive, where the chat is wild and the vibes survive. We're watching the worst of what people do, but we keep it light, yeah, that's our truth. It's the only place for crime, and it feels just right. We bring the justice talk into your night. So hit that stream, don't miss the call. At the Broken Baker, we cover it all. Oh yeah. We're just flaming with the view, but we ask the things the world wants to. Digging through the facts, side by side. Even when it's dark, we bring the light. No clickbait, no fake feels, just truth and the highs and the reels. With the chat that roasts and rise, we're just here for the case and the vibes. This is the Broken Baker, where the stories unfold. With a smile in the heart, even when it's cold. Yeah, we cover the bad with a wink and a grin. Where the real talk starts, come on, jump in. It's the only place to be, can't you see? For trials and truth, it's BBTV. The Broken Baker, where the trials come alive. Yeah, we'll be here, trial and the trial. Yeah.
Whew. 81 degrees Fahrenheit. Right now.
I believe we're at a 90.
Yeah, but you're not made out of snow cones and fat.
True. Also, as you can see, I don't go out in the sun.
It is, it's sitting still and sweating weather. But I've heard from my family across Denmark that thunder and rain should be on its way.
Ooh.
Welcome all to the court hearing in the Kohberger trial. Why did I do that? I needed to do this. I needed to do this. It's so hot I can't think. We will be covering what will be shown. This case has been wrapped up and under gag order, most of it. That's why a lot of people have had, is he guilty? Isn't he guilty? I hope we will get at least a few answers. The Gonsalves family has been really mad, but I can't remember the last name of the boy's family. They have been
Chapin.
okay.
Chapin?
Yeah. But they have been good about it. Can you discuss what happened in Australia and how it affects thousands of children, including Hayden over Ocelot? No, I can't. But I can recommend you to go and watch Mo's morning stream where she discussed it. This stream will be focused on the Kohberger trial. Mo,
Yes.
anything short you could potentially...
So there was a gentleman who was working in multiple daycares. Now in Australia, I guess you have to have a background check and stuff. He passed all of that, but unfortunately they have, and that Australia is really kind of very protective of court trials and stuff. So from what I can gather, he has been charged with actual acts of CA, but also having child grossness pictures. And they didn't release his medical history, but they are telling some families as an extra precaution to take their children to get tested for a certain STI.
Yeah, I saw that part.
That does make me think that he was positive for something because they are giving that warning out. It's a terrible case. Aussie Overlord did a stream about it. And sadly, a lot of times, the victims take on the shame and the worry, and I'm sure Aussie is feeling all this guilt as to why we didn't see this monster. Why didn't I know? Why am I having to talk to my daughter about this? But the fact is that monsters wear human faces, and if they're not smart, they're cunning, and they know how to hide in plain sight. So I just wanted to cover it again to name and shame a monster, but also to encourage people to go over to Aussie Overlord's channel, watch his stream, and give that family and keep the other families that were affected in your thoughts and prayers if you do that, because I can imagine a lot of parents are dealing with a parent's worst nightmare right now.
And the occiput boner.
Oh, and thank you, my mini me.
Oh, that's what it said. I was like, what? Have I seen the latest McAlbert's Poor Me statement? No, I haven't seen that. I have actually just been trying to stay hydrated today and taking care of some 3D stuff. So I know you don't know this, but we actually do have a little bit of a life when we're not streaming.
Yeah, I mean, don't be peanut butter and jealous, but I was folding laundry.
I went to the gym today. I did a little bit back. Then I did some incline walking, just slow walking. In 80 degrees weather I sweated out every drop of fluids I had in my bodies. But again, back to the Kohberger. We don't know what, if any, statements will be made, if anything other than just the deal will be read.
Yeah.
It's different
Well,
from
that's
state
what
to state.
I've heard opposing things because I've been trying to, since I purposely didn't look at the Kohberger case because I have a daughter that's getting ready to go live on campus, and she might be blonde and tall and look somewhat like one of the girls. So this case was always going to be a no-go for me. But I do wonder because I've gotten different things from different legal people. Some people are saying that he might have to do kind of a BTK moment for moment explanation. And then other people are saying it's going to be a fairly dry, they're going to read the charges, he's going to plead guilty, and maybe we'll get some witness impact statements. But no one really knows. It's all speculation until the hearing actually goes on. The one thing that I have found interesting is the apparent, and again, I have to remember the lens through which I'm getting this information, but the apparent lack of communication between the state and the families, I think, was a big misstep. To hear the Gunclavies side of the story, they say we were just given basically an email and told that the
But
plea deal was
you hear it differently from the
well,
other side. That
yeah,
there was a group call where everyone was on. So again, but again, it's different how you deal with sadness or hate or
yeah.
whatever you have.
Well,
Because I don't think they think about, if he had gotten the DP, he could potentially have sat the same amount of time in prison, because a lot of DPs don't get DP'd.
no, and I think that was the big thing. Now you have, and again, maybe part of the plea deal. I would hope that the state would require him to give a fulsome kind of account of what the hell he did. Because if I'm the state, I'm holding all the cards. We don't, everything's pretty much been sealed, but we do know that there was DNA evidence. There's probably more evidence. There was geolocation that had him basically stalking or at least cruising this part of the town, looking for something. So hopefully the families get answers, and maybe the state has listened to the families, and there's going to be a separate time where Bryan tells them maybe they don't want it public as the first time they hear that. So I do understand that the gun clavies maybe have a different perspective than the rest of the families, and that they might be giving a story that, you know, again, how you perceive things through walking through a parent's nightmare, I could never begin to understand.
No, and as Genitals, good evening, Genitals says, it leaves so many unanswered questions, but it's also a way to give the kids a bit of dignity. If
Yeah, and
be, because I sat through in Denmark, we don't have televised, but we have one very famous case with a guy who first unalived his mother in America, then came back home, found a girlfriend who had two minor kids, and ended up unaliving all three of those. There might have been red signs, red flags. I'm just saying, but he reenacted how he did it with the kids with a dummy, and and that was so disturbing that, and I think it was put on TV actually, that it was from a documentary or something where he's just jumping around showing how he did it, and I don't think they ever found the bodies because he disposed of them somewhere. Did he officially plea in court? This is what is going to happen today. This is the plea hearing, and I saw someone say, well, the judge can deny it. The judge won't deny 4 times life in prison instead of having to go through a death penalty case. It won't happen because, one, death penalties doesn't mean death penalties. It means that he has the next 40 years maybe to hold the family in every 5 years for another appeal case. So,
yeah, and they're going to use everything from, he's possibly on the spectrum to, he didn't get hugged enough as a child. I mean, that's the part that I think a lot of victims' families don't get, because it would end up just like the Susan Smith case. And thank you so much, Jason J. Thoughts he gets sentenced on the spot today.
the sentencing
Perhaps,
is in the plea deal.
then I don't know what the,
According to what the rumors is, it's going to be life in prison, maybe 4 times life in prison, with no
yeah.
appeal.
And I think that's the important part. The no appeal means that they don't ever have to go through another hearing, because Susan Smith's ex-husband, every 2 years when she's up for parole, is going to have to relive the fact that she took his 2 children from him. And I can't imagine a worse hell.
No, and because you will have to. And right now, yeah, you want to unalive this a-hole with your own hands. But in 5 years, do you want to come back? The wound has started to close. There's a little bit of scab on it, and then he's just going to yank it off by appealing that his pillow isn't soft enough, and that means that he should have his sentence reduced. And I think that's where people. But again, we're idiots. We watch trials all the time. We know
Yeah.
stuff. If you hear DP, you're thinking, yeah, he's going to be taken out behind the barn, and Jamie is going to stand there and old yell at him. Yeah, but the sentencing is part of the plea deal. He's going to get whatever it is they have agreed to, and that will be read aloud also, I think, if it even goes live, because
Well, yeah, that's my
this
other question, because we still have a lot of people. Okay, Twitter is a hot mess in Christmas, but the amount of people that are like, this is a trap. He's secretly 4D chessing, taking a plea deal, even though he's innocent, even though they say no appeals, it's 4D chess, and he's, I don't know. I'm not good at math, and that one, I was like, Now, the one thing that does intrigue me, and it's people who insert themselves into the case. And you've got this fairly high profile criminologist, psychologist, that is now like really throwing herself in the case. What is her name? She was one of his advisors, and it just strikes me as odd that she's kind of inserting herself and she's like, I want to know all about him and how he tricked me and all of these things. And it just
Yeah,
seems distasteful.
but if he hadn't taken a plea deal, she would be writing the. But he's so innocent, and yeah, that's don't be a caffy daffy, and build your entire life around trying to get famous off a case. I hear the family didn't want him to plead. One of the families didn't. Another family did want. I don't think any of them wanted him to plea, but one of them agreed that they should offer him a plea deal. People are saying, why didn't he do it 2 years ago when he was snatched? Because he thought he could get away with it. That's why you plead just before you go to court, because they have tried to get a third-party culprit kind of defense going. They have tried to say I wasn't there. They have done multiple attempts to try and get evidence put out from the DNA, and none of that had worked. And again, it's public defenders. They have a limited budget, so he doesn't have, and they constantly tried to push the case, and the judge said, we're going forward. There's not enough new stuff here. And congratulations to Alan the baker, all the way up in Canada. 25 years. You couldn't tell that. Yes, Holly did rob the cradle. I've seen pictures of him. But some women like it hot, others like it young. Holly was lucky she got a hot young man. Thank you so much, Holly. A lady I grew up with has to go every 5 years to a parole hearing of the maniac stranger who, when we were 7, her life is hell. Yeah, and that's the thing. Right now, you want revenge. You want to inflict pain. And we all understand that. We're human.
Oh, heck yeah.
But you don't want to sit here in 10 years and have to go back and remember, because when people die, we tend to remember the good times. You want to remember the first day she went to college, not the last day she was at college.
Yeah. And that does happen. And what people don't get about grief is that your life grows around it, and you get a scab. It's still a wound. It's still tender. It's still not as strong as the rest of your heart, but you kind of grow around it. And there are some days where it gets poked and it sucks. But for the most part, you kind of learn to live with it. And to have to rip that off every so often would just be a hell.
Yeah. Yeah. And Sue have been through it. And every 2 years, that's because raw emotions don't heal in 2 years, especially when you have to come back. And then in 4 years, 6 years, 8 years, you'll never have it calm down. And I think the reason why the state wanted this, one, it saves them millions to run a case. 2, they get the appeals off the table, because that's multiple millions they would have to spend down the road for this guy. No appeals, so he can't come back and say, I got a bad toe, I should be let out of prison. So I think that's why they would rather plea out with him, because he's going to go away for life.
Yeah. And that's the real thing that I hope is focused on. Let's forget Bryan once this is done, and just remember his victims, and not as victims, but as the people they were, as the contributions they had, because I think that sometimes we compartmentalize. You know, you and I watch trials, and we watch trials about the worst things. So it's easy to kind of focus on, oh, it's strategery, and oh, how is the defense going to do this? And block out that this is a real person. This is, you know, a real family who is never going to have someone back, because that's really heavy. And usually we, you know, get those feelings when we listen to the victim impact statements. That's what they're for. Those are always hard days, because we kind of compartmentalize, okay, this is the charge, this is what we're looking at, you know, let's see if the state proves it.
Yeah, and again, we are entertainers, so we try to make it entertaining, even though it's tragic cases. But the family is sitting in the courtroom and have to see the pictures, have to listen to the injuries, and they can't just log off, play the Canadian laughing lady, and then everything is great again. Not to mention the do-gooders who come in to save the convict. My friend family had that. People trying to excuse the man who executed a girl for the money in the till of a video rental shop. That's actually a funny thing I've seen, like Mo said earlier, on the Twitter thread, people who are saying, well, he's not actually guilty. Oh, we have... Let's see.
I feel like I'm watching Grant.
Yeah. I'll put some dogs in the corner.
No, you just have to talk like this.
He figured out the connections from the Karen Reed case to the JFK.
How did he add the moon landing? Because I'm not watching until he adds the moon landing and Bigfoot.
Watergate was the missing link.
I don't
All right,
think
this
I
is
can
CR
physically get high enough.
012431665. Defendant is present in custody with counsel, Ms.
There will be no closed caption on this feed.
We
You
will
can see
be
it down here.
quiet.
I can't put it on. This is directly from the court building itself.
Thompson, Ms. Jennings, and pardon me, Ms. Taylor, Ms. Massoff, and Ms. Barlow. The state's present with Mr. Thompson, Mr. Horowitz, Ms. Jennings, and Mr. Nye is here as well. Am I miss anybody? I'm sorry.
Ms. Allen is here as well.
Ms.
Your
Allen
Honor.
is here as well. Very well, thank you. All right, we are here today to entertain a change of plea. Before I start, I want to address some issues of concern and otherwise. First, I appreciate everybody in attendance today being on their best behavior. Please, no outbursts or demonstrations. Any such conduct will result in immediate removal and may result in an inability to attend further court proceedings in this case. I want to point out that there have been calls by some for the public to contact me and my office in an attempt to influence my decision-making in this case. This has been extraordinarily disruptive for court staff and the ability for them to get work done, not only in this case, but in other cases where defendants are entitled to have their
Who the
cases
hell does
processed,
that?
and frankly, as important, if not more so, for victims to have their cases processed in those cases. It's also highly inappropriate. A court is not supposed to, and this court will never, take into account public sentiment in making an opinion regarding its judicial decisions in cases. Courts should, and I always will, make decisions based on where the facts and the law lead me, period. I have not read any of the numerous messages nor listened to any of the numerous voicemails that have been sent to me and my staff Those have all been forwarded to security and, where appropriate, to law enforcement. I ask that you not continue to mount such campaigns or to send me information like this, because again, it is not appropriate and frankly not something I would take into account when deciding a matter in a case like this. I also want people to understand some very basic concepts about the ideas of separation of powers, what the court's duties are, and what the duties and the rights of the executive, or in this case, the prosecuting attorney, is. The executive, the elected prosecutor, is the sole authority in deciding what charges to pursue, including whether, as well as what penalties to ask for, and what penalties to pursue, including the death penalty. This court cannot require the prosecutor to seek the death penalty, nor would it be appropriate for this court to attempt to do that. This court, in considering a plea agreement, if it were to reject this plea agreement, cannot force the state to seek the death penalty. My role and power in considering a plea agreement is extremely limited. My role is to ensure that the defendant's plea is given freely, voluntarily, and intelligently. If those things are met, I can only reject a plea, such as the one in this case, where I'm not being asked to agree to the sentence in advance. I can only reject it, for example, if the defendant does not meet or admit to all of the elements of the crime. That is, I can ensure what is called a factual basis to the plea. Finally, I want to offer my apologies to all the families, including the victims' families, the families of the defendant, for the short notice for today's hearing, and I'm sure what must have been the hurried efforts to get here. I, like most everyone else, learned of this plea agreement Monday afternoon and had no inkling of it beforehand. Prior to that time, I was under the belief that this case was proceeding to trial, as had been indicated, and my staff and I were busy continuing to work on preparations to have potentially 10,000 citizens of Ada County come to jury duty starting in mid-July, with the questionnaire process in mid-July. It was, once I learned of the defendant's decision to change his plea in this case, it was important that I take the plea as soon as possible because of the extraordinary administrative efforts that were otherwise attendant to the process of this, getting this trial potentially underway on time, and including the significant process of bringing, again, potentially up to 10,000 jurors to come in and fill out juror questionnaires prior to the beginning of the voir dire process. And so it was important that we, if we're going to go down this road, do so expeditiously so that we can avoid those costs and expenses associated with that. Otherwise, if it was not going to result in a plea, or if for some reason the plea were to fall through today, that we could continue diligently towards trial at the time specified. And so that obviously required that we act quickly. And so some folks may have not had the amount of time that we would otherwise allow for them to travel here. And so, again, I apologize for that. I want to make people aware that during the hearing, if you are to leave the courtroom for any reason, you will not be readmitted during the hearing. Also, when we finish the hearing this morning, I ask that the public and media wait in their seats until the victims' families and the defendants' families and others are escorted out of the courtroom before you start to leave. Finally, I want to acknowledge the trial court administrator and her staff, the Ada County Sheriff, and the Ada County 4th District Marshal Service for the huge lift that they've accomplished in preparing for and orchestrating this hearing today, as well as to all the security attendant today that you see, and some of whom many of whom you don't see, with less than 48 hours notice. And so I appreciate the hard work that they've been doing. Frankly, some of them while they were on some vacation prior to the trial starting and had to call that short. And so I appreciate very much their professionalism and dedication. All right. That said, let's move to the business of today. I understand the state and the defense have reached a plea agreement in this case. For the record, I have a written plea agreement which indicates in sum, the defendant will plead guilty to all 5 counts in the indictment, burglary, felony, and first-degree murder, 4 counts. The state and the defendant stipulate, that is, that the defense is not free to argue for a lesser sentence at sentencing to the following. The defendant on the burglary charge will be sentenced to 10 years fixed, and that the defendant on counts 2 through 5, the 4 counts of first-degree homicide, on each count would receive a fixed life sentence, all 5 of those counts to run consecutive to one another. Defendant, as part of the plea agreement, waives his right to appeal, as well as his right to appeal the sentence and his right to seek leniency or reconsideration of the sentence under Idaho Criminal Rule 35. This is not a Rule 11 agreement, meaning the court is not bound by the plea agreement and could impose a different lawful sentence at sentencing. The stipulated agreement between the parties is the maximum on each count. So theoretically, the only thing the court could do would be a lesser sentence at sentencing. But the defendant is not free to ask the court to do so under the plea agreement. Are there any other material terms of the plea agreement that the parties would like to make? Obviously, the plea agreement, the written plea agreement will speak for itself and be part of the court record.
Not from the state, Your Honor. Thank you.
No, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right, very well. All right. Ms. Taylor, have you had sufficient time to discuss this case and all of its ramifications with your client?
I have, Your Honor.
Have you discussed fully with him his rights, defenses, and possible consequences to him of the guilty plea?
Yes, Your Honor.
Have you been able to do all the discovery you feel necessary?
Yes, Your Honor.
And have you informed your client of the importance of providing the court truthful and accurate answers in taking this plea today?
I have.
Have you apprised your client of any and all offers and counter offers and answered his questions about those?
Yes,
Do you consent to the entry of the plea today?
I do.
All right, Mr. Kohberger, I need to ask you some questions this afternoon, or I guess it's this morning still. I do this to ensure that so that I am assured that you understand the nature of the charges to which I understand you're going to plead guilty, as well as the possible consequences to you of your guilty pleas. I want to make sure your plea is given voluntarily, and I want to make sure that you actually committed the crimes to which you're pleading guilty, because I don't want you to plead guilty to a crime you didn't commit. If you attempt to plead guilty today, but for some reason I don't accept your plea, then it is possible that your statements today could be used against you later at trial. Do you understand that?
Yes.
All right, thank you. And now, while you're standing, actually, why don't you take the oath from the clerk?
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you shall give in the matter not pending before this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
All right, and Mr. Kohberger, just to make it easier, you don't need to stand when you speak to me. I appreciate the sign of respect, but for convenience, you can remain seated, all right? Before I start asking you questions today, have you consumed substantive questions. Let me ask you, have you consumed any alcohol, drug, or other intoxicating substance that would impair your ability to understand or exercise reasonable judgment?
No.
You feel like you are thinking clearly today?
Yes.
All right, I want you to understand what the possible penalties are for each of the crimes to which I understand you're going to offer a guilty plea today. They include on count one, the burglary, a fine of up to $50,000 and a period of incarceration of up to 10 years in the state penitentiary. You may be required to pay restitution to any victims of the crime. Count 2, 3, 4, and 5 for first-degree murder. The consequences include a fine of up to $50,000, a period of incarceration of life imprisonment, which is a requirement of a sentence, that it be a life sentence with a mandatory minimum sentence of at least 10 years on each of those counts. In addition, you would be potentially responsible for a fine of up to $5,000 to each of the victims of your crime to be enforced in the form of a civil judgment to operate as additional punishment. This is in excess of any restitution or fines that the court could order. And again, you may be required to pay restitution to the victims of the crime. You would be required to provide, as to counts 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, a DNA sample and a right thumbprint impression, and potentially pay for analysis of those samples. You would lose any right to possess, purchase, or carry a firearm, the right to serve on jury duty, the right to hold public office, and the right to vote. Do you understand the charges and all those possible consequences?
Yes.
You've heard the plea agreement that I talked about today. Do you agree with that plea agreement?
Yes.
And do you understand the nature of the charges that you've been charged with that I understand you're going to plead guilty today to?
Yes.
As I indicated, I'm not bound by the plea agreement, but the plea agreement is for the maximum on each count. Do you understand that I'm not bound by the plea agreement?
Yes.
Has anyone promised you that I would be lenient or easy on you if you pled guilty?
No.
Has anyone threatened you or anyone close to you to get you to plead guilty?
No.
Is anyone other than the state's agreements with respect to the plea agreement, has anyone promised you anything in exchange for your plea agreement?
No.
Has anyone told you to be untruthful in answering my questions today?
No.
Has anyone offered you a reward of any kind other than the plea agreement in order to get you to plead guilty today?
No.
Are you pleading guilty because you are guilty?
Yes.
And counsel, obviously there have been a number of motions filed to suppress evidence in this case. Other than those filed, are there any other motions that you felt were available with respect to Rule 12?
No, Your Honor.
And Mr. Kohberger, you understand that by entering the guilty plea in this case, you would be giving up your right to appeal any decision this court made, as well as your sentence.
Yes.
I believe some of it.
Have you had enough time to decide whether or not to plead guilty?
Yes.
Are you pleading guilty freely and voluntarily?
Yes.
Given your choices, do you believe it's in your best interest to plead guilty?
Yes.
Have you discussed fully the matter of pleading guilty with your attorney, and are you satisfied with the advice you've received?
Yes.
Has your attorney advised you to your satisfaction about what your rights are, what your defenses may be, and what the possible consequences to you of your guilty plea are?
Yes.
Has your attorney done everything you've asked them to do?
Yes.
Are you satisfied with their representation of you?
Yes.
I have received a written guilty plea advisory questionnaire that is purported to be filled out by you. Did you fill that document out?
Yes.
Did you understand the questions that you answered in this document?
Yes.
And are the answers that are outlined in this document your answers?
Yes.
Are those answers truthful?
Yes.
Did you sign the document?
Yes.
And this document outlines many of the rights that you have in this case. Should you not plead guilty, did you understand those rights?
Yes.
They include a right to a jury trial. Do you understand that?
Yes.
They include a right to the presumption of innocence. Do you understand that?
Yes.
You have the right to require the state to prove your guilt as to each element beyond a reasonable doubt. Do you understand that?
Yes.
They include a right to confront your accusers and cross-examine witnesses presented by the state, including by utilizing the subpoena power of the court to accomplish that. Do you understand that?
Yes.
You understand you would have a privilege against self-incrimination and a right to remain silent, meaning you would not be compelled to testify if you did not wish to, had you not pled guilty.
Yes.
You understand you're giving up that privilege and those rights that I've just outlined by pleading guilty.
Yes.
All right, I want you to understand what the state would have had to have proven at trial had you, to the crimes that you're pleading guilty to, had you, if you didn't plead guilty. Let me find the document. Hang on a second here. All right. So as to count one burglary, the state would have to have proven that on or about November 13, 2022 in Latah County, Idaho, you unlawfully entered a residence located at 1122 King Road in Moscow, Idaho, with the intent to commit the felony crime of murder. As to count two, the state would have had to have proven that on or about that same date in Latah County, Idaho, you did willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, with premeditation and malice aforethought, kill and murder Madison Mogan, a human being, by stabbing Madison Mogan, from which she died. As to count three, the state would have had to have proven that on that same date in Latah County, at that same address, you did willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, with premeditation and malice aforethought, kill and murder Kaylee Gonzalez, a human being, by stabbing her, from which she died. As to count four, the state would have had to have proven that on or about that same date in Latah County, Idaho, you did willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, with premeditation and malice aforethought, kill and murder Xana Kernodle, a human being, by stabbing her, from which she died. And then as to count five, also murder in the first degree, that on or about November 13th, 2022, in Latah County, Idaho, you did willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, with premeditation and malice aforethought, kill and murder Ethan Chapin, a human being, by stabbing him, from which he died. Do you understand those things the state would have had to have proven?
Yes.
And do you understand that by pleading guilty, the state no longer has to prove those things because you're admitting those things are true?
Yes.
I want to also make, for the record, the defendant has provided with the guilty plea advisory form a document entitled Written Factual Basis that purports to have the defendant's signature dated 1 July 2025. Did you sign that document?
Yes.
And did you agree with the written factual basis that is included there?
Yes.
I hope that is read out.
And then
At the
let me
sentencing.
ask you, did you, on November 13th, 2022, enter the residence at 1122 King Road in Moscow, Idaho, with the intent to commit the felony crime of murder?
Yes.
Did you, on November 13th, 2022, in Latah County, state of Idaho, kill and murder Madison Mogan, a human being?
Yes.
And did you do that willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, and with premeditation and malice of forethought?
Yes.
Did you, on or about that same date in Moscow, Idaho, kill and murder Kaylee Gonzalez, a human being?
Yes.
And did you do that willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, and with premeditation and malice of forethought?
Yes.
And did you, on that same date in Moscow, Idaho, kill and murder Xana Kernodle, a human being?
Yes.
And did you do that willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, with premeditation and malice of forethought?
Yes.
And then on or about November 13th, 2022, again in Latah County, Idaho, did you kill and murder Ethan Chapin, a human being?
Yes.
Did you do that willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, with premeditation and malice of forethought?
Yes.
I would ask the state at this time to provide its recitation of its factual basis had this case gone to trial.
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, the organization of the recitation is different than what I think the court and the public may be familiar with from the probable cause affidavit and other documents. The state's evidence, as an overview, would show that back in March of 2022, when the defendant was residing at his parents' residence or was residing back in Pennsylvania, his home state, he purchased online a K-bar knife and sheath with an Amazon gift card that he had purchased shortly prior to the purchase of the knife, sheath, and sharpener. Jumping ahead, the end of June of that year, the defendant, Mr. Kohberger, moved from Pennsylvania to Pullman, Washington, which is right across the state line from Moscow, Idaho, for the purpose of pursuing a PhD in criminal justice at Washington State University. The state's evidence would indicate that beginning July 9th of 2022, Mr. Kohberger's phone began connecting to a cell tower that serves the area of the 1122 King Road residence in Moscow, Idaho. Now, I will acknowledge for the court and all present that there are many residences in that area. It's a dense population of mostly college-related occupants. Between July 9th of 2022 and November 7th, the defendant's phone connected to that particular tower during late night, early morning hours, 10 p.m. to 4 a.m., on approximately 23 times. Now, I will acknowledge also, we do not have evidence that the defendant had direct contact with 1122 or with residents of 1122, but we can put his phone in that area on those times. In the interim, on August 22nd of 2022, Latah County Sheriff's Deputy Darren Duke conducted a traffic stop in the early morning hour or late evening hours, about 11 p.m. On the west side of Moscow, on the Moscow-Pullman Road. This was a traffic stop of Mr. Kohberger's car, which turned out to be a 2015 white Hyundai Elantra with Pennsylvania plates. During the course of the traffic stop, Deputy Duke was able to obtain Mr. Kohberger's name, Bryan Kohberger, his phone number, and his address, which at that point was an apartment address in Pullman. We then move to the early morning hours of November 13th, 2022. The state's evidence would show that early morning hours on that day, Mr. Kohberger's phone left his Pullman residence, which is an apartment in kind of the central northwest part of Pullman. That phone was then subsequently turned off at approximately 2:54 a.m. and remained off until approximately 4:48 a.m. on Sunday, the 13th of November.
Is the court sending a double feed?
I think maybe someone in the court has another mic on.
It sounds like there's a slight. I thought you might be recording something on the side, and I just wanted to tell you. And chat.
Baker, I don't know how to record something on the side.
And chat, don't fight over people who has pled guilty. There's no reason to do it. People are allowed to have different opinions. We're all grown-ups. Don't get into petty fights over murderers you don't know.
The state's evidence would include at trial, video surveillance of a business on the Moscow-Pullman Highway, just across the state line from Moscow. It would show a vehicle matching the description of the defendant's Hyundai Elantra entering Moscow at approximately 3:02 a.m. Compiled surveillance that the investigators put together from businesses and residents then show the defendant's car, the white Elantra, as I've described, circling the 1122 King Road area, that neighborhood, starting around 3:30 or so in the morning. Comes into the immediate area of 1122 King Road, which is actually on a dead end, and then leaves several times. And approximately 4:05 that morning, the defense car had entered that area, was leaving, stopped at the intersection of King and Queen Road, did a U-turn, and the state's evidence would show that the defendant's car came back and parked behind and above the 1122 King Road residence. The state believes that its evidence would then show that the defendant entered the residence of 1122 through the kitchen sliding door on the back side of the residence, which is the side of the residence that would face the area above where the defendant's car was parked. Defendant entered the residence, went to the third floor, and with a knife, killed Madison Mogan and Kayla Gonzalez. The defendant, as he left that room, for whatever reason, ended up leaving, or the sheath for a K-bar knife was left on the bed next to Madison Mogan's body. And I can jump ahead. That sheath was tested by the Idaho State Police Forensic Lab, and single source male DNA was found on the snap of that sheath, as well as blood from both Kaylee and Madison and other trace evidence. But it's important to note single source male DNA was on the snap of that sheath. The state's evidence would show that Xana Knodel was still awake at this time. In fact, had taken a DoorDash order not long before this started. Her room was not on the third floor. It was on the second floor on the west side. As the defendant was either coming down the stairs or leaving, he encountered Xana, and he ended up killing her, also with a large knife. Ethan Chapin, Xana's boyfriend, was asleep in their bedroom, in her bedroom, and the defendant killed him as well with a large fixed blade knife. Each victim suffered multiple wounds. I will state for the record that there is no evidence there was any sexual component or sexual assault on any of the victims. I want to make that clear so there's no speculation. There were two other roommates in the house, and they were already asleep. During the course of this, one of those roommates awoke, looked out her door not knowing what was going on, and saw the defendant, who was dressed in black with a black balaclava on, holding some sort of container in his hand. And she saw him leave the house through the direction of the kitchen to where that sliding door is that I mentioned before. At approximately 4:20 that morning, so this would have been 15 minutes or so later, the defendant's car is seen on a surveillance camera for 1112 King Road, which is immediately next door to the west of 1122, leaving the area at a high rate of speed. And if the court were to see that, or anybody in this courtroom would see that, you can see the car almost loses control as it makes the corner, heads north, and then turns to go south on Walinta, which is one of the only ways to get out of that part of town. The evidence would show that following that, the defendant in his Elantra drove south of Moscow. We know that he drove on the back roads because there are surveillance cameras on the main highways, Highway 95, that would have picked up the defendant's car if he'd gone that route. And they did not show the defendant's car on that route during the time. So we know that he went through a variety of back roads in very rural, isolated part of Latah County About 4:48 that morning, defendant's phone comes back on. And the evidence will show that that phone was located south of Moscow, likely at a side road intersection with Highway 95. From there, the defendant's phone activity tracks it heading back north towards Pullman, Washington, where the defendant lived. About 5:26, starting approximately 5:26, various surveillance cameras in Pullman, Washington pick up the defendant's vehicle as he enters Pullman from the south and heads north and slightly west towards his apartment, where he arrived at approximately 5:30 in the morning. Later that morning, Sunday, the 13th of November of 2022, Mr. Kohberger's phone returned to the area of King Road. We don't know exactly what he did, but it returned to that area. It's about 9 o'clock in the morning. It was there for about 10 minutes and then returned to his Pullman residence. About 9:30, the state's evidence will show, evidence taken from the defendant's phone, that he took a selfie of himself on his phone in what appears to be the bathroom of his Pullman apartment with a thumbs up. The defendant's phone then went to the Lewiston-Clarkston Valley, approximately 30 miles south of Moscow and Pullman. And the defendant is actually seen with his car at various businesses down there. This area is the confluence of the Clearwater River and the Snake River. Lewiston is Idaho's seaport. Large bodies of moving water down there. In addition to tracing the defendant's activities, as I've just outlined, on the 13th and leading up to the 13th, the state's evidence will show that following Sunday, November 13th of 2022, business records show that the defendant began searching for a K-bar knife and a K-bar knife sheath, as the state believes, to replace the one that was left at the scene of the murders. The evidence also will suggest that there were at least attempts by the defendant to delete or alter his purchase history on Amazon, where all these transactions had occurred. Later that week, the state's evidence will show that Mr. Kohberger went to what we would call DMV, motor vehicle licensing here in Idaho, in Pullman, to change his car registration from Pennsylvania to Washington. That's of note because Pennsylvania cars do not require a front license plate. The vehicles seen on the surveillance cameras of the defendant's car showed it didn't have a front license plate on it. At the time of the traffic stop by Deputy Duke in August, it was Pennsylvania plate, no front license plate. Mr. Kohberger proceeded to finish his semester of studies at Washington State University and returned to Pennsylvania for the holidays. Law enforcement at this point were aware of Mr. Kohberger, had been accessing information about him, were trying to find him. They located him in Pennsylvania, and they conducted what's called a trash pull. During the nighttime hours, agents of the FBI, who assisted immensely with this case, working with the sanitation department back in this neighborhood in Pennsylvania, took trash that had been set out on the street for collection, sent the contents of that from the Pennsylvania residence of the defendant's parents to the Idaho State Forensic Laboratory, where the lab experts there were able to identify DNA on a Q-tip as coming from the father of the person whose DNA was found on the knife sheath that was next to Madison Logan's body in the bed. Subsequently, an arrest warrant was issued here in Idaho, and a search warrant was issued in the state of Pennsylvania with the assistance not only of the FBI, but the Pennsylvania State Police. Mr. Kohberger was arrested at his parents' home to return to Idaho. Upon his return to Idaho, a DNA sample was taken from him, and it matched the DNA found on the knife sheath next to Maddie's body at the crime scene. I can tell the court, and the public, the weapon itself, the knife, has not yet been recovered. I can tell the court that the defendant's apartment in Pullman was searched, as well as his office. Spartan would be a kind characterization. There was virtually nothing there. Nothing of evidentiary value was found. And of course, we are now talking 6-8 weeks after the time of the killings. In Pennsylvania, the defendant's car was seized, and it was actually pretty much disassembled internally. And it also had been cleaned. There was a bucket of cleaner right beside it. I think we can all look to our own cars, you know, in those compartments in the doors. You can try to keep them clean where you put stuff. There's always some degree of crud in there. They were spotless. The defendant's car had been meticulously cleaned inside. And the state would present to the jury that that was part of the defendant's plan in covering up this. The defendant has studied crime. In fact, he did a detailed paper on crime scene processing when he was working on his pre-doctorate degrees, and he had that knowledge and skill. So, Your Honor, at the end, the state submits that the evidence that I've given just a quick overview of, and that to present in court would consume weeks, which the state is prepared to do and has been prepared to do, would show that as the defendant has just admitted and pleaded guilty on November 13th, 2022, excuse me, Mr. Kohberger entered the residence of 1122 King Road in Moscow, Idaho. He did that with the intent to kill. We will not represent that he intended to commit all of the murders that he did that night, but we know that that is what resulted, and that he then killed intentionally, willfully, deliberately, with premeditation, and with malice forethought, Manny Mogan, Kaylee Gonzalez, Ethan Chapin, and Santa Cruz. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, based on the state's proffer, and importantly, based upon defendant's explicit admission to committing these crimes, the court finds there is a factual basis. Therefore, with respect to count 1, burglary, felony, how do you plead, Mr. Kohberger, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
As to count 2, murder in the first degree, as it relates to the murder of Madison Mogan, how do you plead, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
As to count 3, as it relates to murder in the first degree for the murder of Kaylee Gonzalez, how do you plead, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
As to count 4, the first degree murder of Xana Kernodle, a human being, how do you plead, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
As to count 5, the first degree murder of Ethan Chapin, a human being, how do you plead, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
Right. The court will find that the defendant understands the nature of the charges and each offense and the possible consequences to him of his guilty plea. Court finds that there is a factual basis for the plea, and that finds the defendant believes the plea to be in his best interest. I find that the plea was given freely, voluntarily, and was intelligently made. I accept the plea. I direct that it be entered. I'll continue the matter for sentencing in this case. I think it was mentioned on the call Monday afternoon, the defense wishes to waive a pretrial investigation. Is that accurate?
Yes, Your Honor.
The state also?
Yes, Your Honor, the state does not believe pre-sentence investigation is needed, given the evidence that is available. We want to, though, make sure that all of the victims have the opportunity to make statements to the court at sentencing.
Absolutely. And certainly both the state and the defense may present whatever sentencing memorandum and other documents you wish me to consider. The victims will be given an opportunity to provide the statements that they wish to at sentencing. Do we need more than 1 full day for sentencing?
I do not believe so, Your Honor. Obviously, we have numerous victims, and we have victims who share unique perspectives on this, and we want to make sure that they all have time to express their feelings to the court. But I believe that if we can start perhaps 8:30 or so in the morning, that we should be able to complete it all in 1 day.
Defense agree with that in terms of the time frame?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. So as it happens, we have some time reserved in this case in July and August. the week of July 22nd is available. I don't know if that's too soon for the parties, or the next week, the week of August 4 is available. Any preference?
Your Honor, we're prepared as soon as the court wants to schedule it.
This date, I believe, would be prepared on the 22nd. We've told the victims' families that we're looking at approximately those dates.
All right, so because of the plan to bring in so many jurors to fill out questionnaires, I had ordered that no other trials could take place in this courthouse the week of July 22nd. And so we will use that in terms of the sentencing date because of what I'm sure will be the significant interest of the media and the public, and the logistics that will be required to make that happen. Without trials going, it'll be a lot easier to do that. So let's pick that week. Why don't we pick July 23rd with the idea that if for some reason we don't finish, we could continue into the 24th. We'll start at 9 in the morning. Does that give your team enough time, Sandra? 9 in the morning? All right. Any concerns with that date?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
No, sir.
All right. Any reason why I should not rescind the non-dissemination order at this time?
You're right. I think that given the history of this case, it would be best if that remained in place through sentencing. So we have time to make sure there's the ability to completely answer questions. That would be the state's preference and recommendation.
We'd have no objection for the order to remain in place through
All right,
sentencing.
I will, at this point, the idea to keep it until sentencing, which time it would be withdrawn in order to give the parties the space and time to prepare to meet what I'm sure will be the deluge of media requests. That's at least my preliminary decision at this point. We can always revisit if it seems to be, for some reason, I should. That said, obviously, I don't think the defendant, a bond was ever set for the defendant. Were it would be revoked. The prior order allowing him to come in civilian clothes is revoked, given his plea and no longer the presumption of innocence. And in fact, now the actual
public
conviction
defenders,
for the
yes.
crimes. He will continue to be held at the jail pending sentencing. Is there anything else today?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
I assume that the trial date will be vacated
trial
and those
is-
4 jurors will be released.
The trial will be vacated, and I'm sure that the jury commissioner will get word to those that receive their summons that they won't be required to attend. So
Thank you.
that said, again, if you would all please wait for the parties and the victims' families and others to leave the courtroom before you do, I would appreciate it. And with that, we're adjourned. All right, please.
Well, I think that we learned a lot more, but I think the reaction of the prosecutor and the way his voice broke, he's seen a lot more than we know. And reading between the lines, I've always got the impression that this was an exceptionally brutal attack. They haven't released things, but just the way the investigators talked, it did seem like this was exceptionally over the top. My question has always been, why leave other witnesses? And why that house? And maybe we'll get that, or maybe we won't.
I don't know if you have gotten that. Yeah, that. If we go through what the evidence they had the K-bar purchased before he went to Moscow to go to school. They had him on the cell towers near the apartment and on some surveillance cameras, as far as I understood it. he had a traffic stop. Was that the same day? I was a little weird.
So he seems to be a lead foot because he got stopped multiple times. They have him at Washington University. I believe they stopped him twice in Indiana for tailgating, but I believe he also had several Idaho tickets for either speeding or tailgating. Now, I could
But
be wrong on all of
but
that.
they mentioned a stop, and I think that was the same day he was stopped, where they wrote down that he didn't have a front page. Then he turned his phone off, but they have him on camera in the area again.
Yeah, that's the part that if he's so meticulous, if he has planned this down to the microsecond, that's the part that I don't get because he should be aware and cognizant that everyone has a Ring camera, businesses have, security cameras. You can't be unseen, and that's the confusing part. If he's, this criminal mastermind, how did he not factor this in?
Well, he didn't have a front plate, so maybe he thought they couldn't find a Hyundai Elantra. But they then claim he went up to the third floor, and unalived the first two people with multiple. And this is why I think his voice broke. I think he must have went to town on the bodies.
That's what I think. It does confuse me. Again, I want answers. Why did he go to the third room? Now, I know there's been conjecture that he had one specific person that he was kind of fixated on.
Yeah, Maddie.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that has kind of been debunked that stalking wasn't him.
Yeah, and I guess that's my issue is why that house. And it was such a rabbit warren that you would have to have familiarity with that house or at least looked up or I don't know. He's so meticulous and then he doesn't look at these obvious things like Ring cameras and the fact that, he basically was there like, I think 12 times in the month before. It's just that weird juxtaposition of how he was so careful with some things and then other things were just, YOLO.
Yeah, but again, that's the smartest, dumbest criminal fallacy, where because he does something, we expect him to be smart, but sometimes he could have done everything, but then he drops the sheath to the K-bar, and that's why doesn't he make sure that that's taped to him or something? And that's why I think people were sitting here, because if he was so smart that he disassembled the car and cleaned it up, then why did he leave the knife sheet? But again, we don't know. We haven't seen the pictures. I am just mind reading off of the voice of the prosecutor. I don't think those pictures would have been good for anyone to see.
No, I do have a question about the roommates, but I can understand if you're afraid, if you're hearing these terrible noises, and being young, maybe you had some devil's lettuce or you drank and you didn't want to call the cops. Hopefully, the roommates are getting help and support too, because I couldn't imagine, realizing and the survivor's guilt of that. But those are some things that have never really made sense to me. But again, I didn't deep dive into this case. This case was a no-go for me.
But again, there's this one who said, I saw him, and she just saw bushy eyebrows, because he allegedly was wearing a ski mask
like
or something.
a balaclava.
Yeah, something like that. But when he goes downstairs, that's where he encounters Sana, and then he unalives her. So he is worried about witnesses, and he doesn't just unalive her, but goes into her room and unalives her boyfriend who's sleeping at the time, which to me is why. You're very much afraid of any witnesses. and then you're still seen by someone and runs off. It's
Well, and why would you dress up like the typical Hollywood burglar, like with the, ski mask and the dark clothes? I mean, let's say I'm Brian and I want to get into this house. I'm going to dress in casual clothes because maybe I'm a, delivery driver. Maybe I'm a friend that they don't know about.
4 in the
I mean,
morning is, I don't know. But
we're over
again,
here trying to make sense of madness. That's the problem.
I think that's the problem. I think this guy is highly intelligent on some, because he sounded clear-minded. Trust me, I have seen worse in court. I've even met Jesus in court. So it's,
Did you
but he
get some
seemed like he
wine?
understood everything. And because we are the same all the way through. We expect others to be that, but he has some mental whatever.
I do wonder about his link. He claimed to really be a fan of Bundy, and Bundy is kind of infamous for the sorority house
Yeah.
massacre. That was a lot kind of like this. It was, an off-campus house, very grievous, very berserker almost attack, and
Yeah.
then, quick getaway. And Bundy didn't take care of all the people in the house either. So it it is an
No,
interesting thing to speculate about, but I
yeah.
don't have any proof. I'm just a redhead on the internet, speculating.
When is it premeditated as opposed to a crime of opportunity? Premeditation is when you think about it, decide you're going to do it, and then you do it. That's why the prosecutor said, I can't tell you that all of them were premeditated. The Sana one and her boyfriend most likely was a crime of opportunity. She came out, he just went to town to cover his tracks. He goes into the house to unalive. That's premeditated. But then multiple people are also unalived after, because they just happen to get in his way. So that's not premeditation as such, but premeditation is, I want to do it.
Yeah,
Crime
and
of
it can
opportunity
happen
is,
right
oh, I
before.
could just do it. It's right here now.
Yeah, it's not like most premeditation isn't like you have a notebook, you've been thinking, you've got the little board. It's unfortunately the only example I can think of is the Carmelo Anthony case where he reached into his bag and got the knife.
Mm.
So that's premeditation. He was already expecting to attack with the knife if anything happened. So it can happen right before. It doesn't have to be a notebook like I have a list of people to revengeate.
But it's still, in this
It
case, you would
still
say
requires
the
thought.
first two are at least premeditated, because he went in there, went straight, because you don't go to the third floor if you just want to unalive someone. If you want to unalive this one, you'll go to the third floor. Else, you'll just go in, kick the first door in, and stibbity stab, or you'll grab someone outside in the bushes. At least one of the people who were in the first room was the object he was going to unalive. And we don't know why. And we can speculate that he was in love with her, or she said something to him, or she just looked like that girl in 5th grade, or whatever. We don't know. And we might never, ever know why he just... And that's the thing, because this is some kind of insanity, even though he's not insane. To normal people, this is insane. And we can't understand why he chose to do this.
No. And
If he wasn't caught, he could have done this over and over. He didn't cover his track that well, so I don't think he could have done it over and over and over again. But I can see I think part of the agreement, yes, the agreement, as it says in the bottom, 10 years for burglary, maximum penalty, 4 times life in prison consecutively, maximum sentence, no plea, and no begging for lesser sentencing at the sentencing hearing. He will, with this plea deal, have absolutely no way of getting out of prison unless it's in a cardboard box. There's no plea. There's no humanitarian. There's no nothing. Every plea is null and void from the beginning. And I think when the families think about that, they will at some point find out that is probably for the best, because if they had given him the DP, first of all, that's 8 to 10 weeks on trial. Second of all, that's maybe 20 years where you have to go back to court over and over and over and over and over again. And then you get, which state was it who just overturned it when we were about to have a DP case? If it's overturned, well, then he's going to go back and then he's going to get life.
I'm trying to remember.
It was it Kentucky or Tennessee that put it on hold or something, so you couldn't get the DP anymore?
Yeah, and there's a lot of rule changes about minors now and things like that. And Jedi Jess, if you know, is there a Son of Sam type law in Idaho to where he cannot profit from his crimes? Because I know Florida has one, or just got one, and I know there's a couple in other states, but that is another worry.
Yeah. Who's the hottie with you, Baker? That's me.
I just figured out how to do my hair.
Well, Wallstrom doesn't need much. He needs a red velvet cake and some red hair.
Ooh, that did look good. I was like, Mr. Mo, go get me cake. And you know what? He wouldn't do that at 9 p.m.
99% sure they do hold on.
Thank you.
Yeah, but they have one. It's not called the Son of Sam law. Okay.
Okay.
But just as long as he can't profit from his crimes, because they can sue him for up to $5,000 a person, which will probably cost them $30,000 to sue him, or $50,000.
Yeah. In the near future, what I see is a lot of main character syndrome people popping up. You have this, former advisor who wants to pick his brain. I see a lot of that. I see a lot of people trying to figure him out in the near future.
I actually kind of like we see in the Karen Reed case where people keep saying, "Oh, she's factually guilty." No, she's factually innocent, because you're innocent until proven guilty. She wasn't proven guilty. And I see a lot of people, because a lot of people were really banking on this case to be the big case they were going to cover now. And I think a lot of people will sit here and spin the story about how he was forced to do this, that he didn't really mean this. I can see a lot of people jumping right on that bandwagon saying, "Oh, this isn't a real plea. This is just someone who forced him to do it." I was looking for something. Why can't I find that? I already saw it. I'm gonna anonymize it because I don't want more drama.
Drama, I love it. Let's start a beef.
Let's start a beef.
Where's the beef?
This is from when Brian Entin released this. "I don't believe anything this so-called reporter says until I see it for myself. #Kohberger. This is yet another attempt by the government to taint the jury pool into believing Bryan Kohberger is guilty. This is a plea offer, not an agreement." This is after we already had breaking news on every channel that this person went out and claimed this. A person who has covered the Kohberger trial. And again, I know a lot of people were in doubt because we didn't know most of the facts because there has been so much secrecy about this case. But if they could prove what I wrote down here, they should have a really, really good explanation for all of these facts, and I don't think they have it, and that's why he took a plea deal. They forced him into take a plea deal to ruin my channel, Law Tuber. Exactly. I was just banking on that. That was 3 months of content.
Well, can the aunties tell me where to send my invoice? Because apparently we're all part of,
Auntie Deb,
you know,
you have to send it to Auntie Deb. She has done the books for last month, so just so you know.
damn. Okay, I knew I was supposed to contact someone, but yeah, all of us have been paid by Karen Reed. It's a big conspiracy, and Watergate was involved.
And P. Diddy and Karen Reed is exactly the same. They bought their way out of prison. There are definitely some people out there who think he's going to jujitsu his way out of this with some kind of appeal, and it's just buying time. Yeah, and if he sends in an appeal, he will have a paperback saying, "You pled guilty, no appeal, F you." The aunties will blame Karen Reed for this too. No. Kohberger is more. What was it that weirdo Julie said the other day? She had more morals. He had more morals than Karen Reed because he pled guilty. Imagine that you would go to bed with anyone just because you don't like Karen Reed. The Boston Strangler make big bucks selling choker necklaces made of 2 hands, so you can't profit from your crimes in Massachusetts. No, that's the thing. A lot of books and stuff were written, and people made money. And that's why they made all of these laws. Yeah, he admitted to it. You believe he was the next serial monster. Could have been a one-time deal. We don't know, but he's off the streets now forever, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, and my hope is just like Lori Daybell, and all these people, they thrive on attention, and I think he's, in my opinion, and this is speculation, he is enjoying all this attention, whether it's negative or positive. He is soaking it up, and I think it's, for lack of a better term, butters his biscuit that now people that he admired, his advisors, are going to talk and try to, figure out the mystery that is him. He's going to get all this attention from people wanting to figure things out. And I'm hoping that he gives the families some information, but I have a sinking feeling that this is a power trip and he is never going to tell them what actually happened.
And hey, Dave and friends, welcome. He haven't given them the kniff yet. To me, that seems like he is not cooperating fully. So, yeah, Turtle Boy personally drafted the plea agreement, exactly. And I'm, per Google, no, Idaho doesn't have a son in Savnon. Interesting. And there was one, Edward Scott says, one was made federally, but it was turned over on First Amendment ground. Interesting.
Well, I mean, there's always the Barry Morphew case that's coming up if this one's gone.
Well, luckily we couldn't cover that Stephen Stern case because I didn't see it anywhere. A guilty plea waives your right to an appeal. No, it doesn't always, but this has a stipulation that it does, because you can plead guilty and then you can appeal it later. Some plea deals have it, some plea deals don't have it. But if you plead guilty, this is what he also said to the judge. If you admit it now, it'll be used against you if we go to court. So that's that. Normally don't see an appeal on a plea deal because you said, yeah, I'm guilty. And they're going to pull it out and say, but didn't you stipulate in court? Didn't you write this piece of paper? Is that your signature? And now you're telling these fine folks it didn't happen.
And that's why the judge said, are you on anything? Has anyone offered you anything? Were you scared? Were you bullied? All of those are on record. So if he did try to go back and say, I was coerced and I was on all the not street legal pharmaceuticals, I wasn't in my right mind, ineffective, counsel. The judge made sure, just like, the judge in the Sarah Boone case, made sure that every day he asked her if she was okay because he, foresaw her going for an ineffective counsel, though you could argue that with her lawyers, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, they were bad,
They were
Yeah,
better than
th-
her being pro se, though.
but not for my channel.
Well, yeah, I mean, way to go, Sarah, screwing us all over.
You owe me monies. What's with the pearls on the donuts? You don't want to know. Yeah, he threw the knife away, but he haven't told them where it is, and maybe they didn't ask for it. I think they might have asked for it, but it's called a Slayer statute in Idaho.
Oh,
Yeah, Slayer should sue. No, it's way before that. It just works with polo balls as well. Bryan is a
dang it,
coward. Well, at
Baker.
least he admitted that he did it. No known motive. No. The state doesn't have to prove motive, and he hasn't given one. He might come out because we're gonna on the 23rd of
Second.
July, 22nd. Yeah, I saw it. I believe they said 22nd, but then I saw on Twitter
I'm going to
it's
have
23rd.
to go back because
Yeah.
I was trying to answer a question and I was like, what did they say?
But there will be sentencing with victim impact statements that day as well, and he might have a prepared statement to give, like Sarah Boone, who went up there and read, "I am porcelain, you cracked me, Jorge, you destroyed me."
Yeah,
This is your fault.
I do appreciate that Sarah forgave us all for all of our sins.
Yeah,
I was worried about that.
that I was getting a little bit confused. That's when you started using that pic. Was my point? No, I've used it before because it's I've used it on FNL because it's a sexual connotation to the donut. So
Now I want a donut. Dang you, Baker.
a donut and a pearl necklace with a lot of glazing.
Well, that's my Halloween costume. I didn't want to, I didn't want to dress up every day.
How to say with this plea deal it came out wrong? I'm not sure what you mean. 22nd and 24th if they need an X-ray. Thank you, Big Dog. And thank you for purchasing some Swayzer in my merch store. Remember to put it on the Discord and say, I now have Swayzer. Is it what everyone wanted? No. Is it what everyone needed? Probably not. Is it better than sit for 10 weeks and maybe have to see those pictures in court? Yes.
Yeah. And I think once the anger goes away, and the anger can stay for many years, but once it goes away, I think the fact that they don't have to deal with this man, they could, hypothetically, after sentencing, never, go see him, have to deal with him ever again. It's so in that way, it is a relief, but we get to look at it logically. We get to look at it without the extra added emotional weight of knowing that he took our baby away. So it's really easy for us to say, this is better and everything. We don't have to walk the path the parents do. And maybe the parents, aren't acting the way you want them, or they're louder or more aggressive. But I see that more as a trauma response. So I kind of.
Yeah, and again, as I've said, I got mad at God, and it took me some time to get friends with him again. It will happen. Mary, now I understand what you're saying. you meant that he should have been made to tell what he did with the knife. Yeah, sometimes you will have that they must give some kind of statement. It sounded to me like he had signed, "These are the facts." If they are going to be read at sentencing, I don't know. If you can FOIA request them after, I don't know. But it would be interesting. And again, this is just my morbid curiosity. Why the hell did you kill 4 people?
Yeah, and the sad fact is, and you know this being a lay juror or whatever they call you,
Layman.
that evil doesn't need a reason. We want it to have a reason. We want it to make sense because it doesn't make sense. None of this makes sense. Why would you go into a house? Why would you essentially take, make a swath of destruction this big? It makes no sense and it has no logic, and we want it desperately to make sense and have logic so we can stop the next one, so we can be safe. And unfortunately, in this life, sometimes evil just evils.
I also think the finality of this is good. I know that the families aren't particularly happy, but the 20 years of capital punishment appeals does not seem like fun for any of the families either. No, but they're not thinking about that. I saw that I want to call him Gonzalez, but you call him
Conclaves?
Conclaves, was standing
know, I might be
outside
doing
of
it
court
wrong.
yelling about how wrong this plea deal is. And then you get into it because there's another family who says it's okay. So can one family veto the other one said, we want closure? Can they then veto it? And can I just say, I know I'm not American, but I think I understand a little bit about your justice system. Stop fucking writing judges.
Yes,
Judges,
don't do that.
you won't get a judge to change their mind by writing 45 emails about you shouldn't accept this plea deal because I really like Bryan Kohberger and I think he's innocent. Or you should not accept this because he should be old yelled behind the barn because I don't like him. Stop doing it. The only thing you can get is a effing mistrial. Why must people? It's the same, that weird Dutch boy who came in and wanted to get on my stream who self-inserted himself into the Delphi case and sent weird mails to everyone. Stop doing it, goddammit. You're gonna get mistrial. You're not gonna get justice. It's redunculous.
Well,
It's
our justice system is based on the exact opposite of this. Not that it's not mob justice. We do due process. I get that our system isn't perfect, but this is the system we have and we all agreed on, and that means that some of the court cases that you're following aren't going to go your way. The jury's going to figure out something else. People are going to have other opinions. Now, be a damn adult and don't call the manager. Again, audacity must be on clearance if you want to Karen a judge.
Mary, that's why we talked about the Son of Sam law. The Son of Sam law was instituted because when he was found guilty, he wrote a book and made quite a deal. Well, did he ever write it or did he just get a book deal for quite a big sum of money? And then they went in and say, you shouldn't be able to profit from your crime. They have that law in Florida. They have it in New York, I know. There's different places that if you're convicted in cases like this, you're not allowed to benefit from your crime by pinning a book deal or a documentary deal. And apparently they also have strict rules for talking to the press in prison, so he can't even get on Plevin's show to talk about this crime.
I am waiting for Plevin's drunken mad libs of this case. I kind of liked it. It made me feel smart. SMRT smart.
Smarter resist. He wouldn't be able. Come on. He wouldn't be able to earn money off of it. In fact, his victims could sue for the publishing right, like the Goldman family did with OJ as part of the civil collection. Interesting. You should write a book anyway, even though he's not going to get paid. You know he wants to. Yeah. When I did it. Great book title.
Yeah.
Plevin can be
Bushy
his
eyebrows.
ghostwriter. But Mo, you have set your
Yes.
redirect up. I'm thinking
Of
I'm
course
going
I
to go.
have.
Yeah, that's why I said it. So you had 2 seconds to do it. I'm going to sit on a bucket of ice tomorrow. I will be taking care of Monty at my brother's house, but I'm bringing the laptop so we can watch the closing arguments in the teen case, because we will have closing arguments in that case tomorrow, and jury instructions should also be tomorrow, and then deliberation. I will not be able to stream all day because time zones and stuff. Maybe I can ask Mo if you want to take over the stream instead of me or something. But
I should be able to do it tomorrow if you send me the link, but I can tell you I have not one damn clue what's going on in that case.
annoying teenagers who wanted to get in a fight, and one of them had a knife. That's what went on.
Oh,
As soon as the hearing started, I understood why the families were so upset about the short notice of this. I didn't understand until it started the necessity of needing to be there in person admitting what he did. I didn't understand until it started the necessity of needing to be there in person admitting what he did. Oh, for him to be there.
I think for the families to be there, to actually hear him, admit to that.
Oh. Yeah, but I think every family is kind of close, or have been kind of close to that area. His family has not. But that's also why for the sentencing hearing, they are giving them a month to prepare for that, because that's going to be, hopefully all of them is there. Interestingly, the dog, Son of Sam, David Berkowitz's blame was a German Shepherd like Chloe. He kept a picture of the dog in his apartment.
Don't tell DePetro that he's going to, and Dingus, Doink.
Yeah. I was thinking about doing DeSoto today, but as if you was following on my Discord, I had a come to Jesus moment yesterday after I read the 60 charges against him for the bad stuff with kids. And I couldn't stop thinking about Baby Baker and anyone doing anything to him. And I don't want to continuously punch something while I'm watching the trial. So I told Mo, if she had the stones to do it, I would make sure all of you got redirected over there. It hasn't been televised, but I kept seeing Baby Baker in front of me, and that isn't a good thing if you have to sit here and cover trials.
Yeah, I will be blatantly honest. The Stephen Stearns Madeline Soto case is going to be a son of a bitch.
Yeah. The murder trial, I think I can do, but not the CP. That's too gross.
So this first trial is only for his child grossness and his essays of Madeline. This is not for the red rum at all. This is going to be covering some really gross, disgusting stuff. I will share with you guys. Jedi and Marissa made all this Google document, so I'm going through that. But I've had to take breaks.
It's actually horrible to because again, it's kids, and they don't spare you for the details in what they allege. And it's not a fun read, let's just say that. And I was reading it yesterday, and I just couldn't keep Baby Baker out of my mind, and thought if anyone had done any of
charges.
this.
I mean, at this point, let him fertilize a tree and do something effing useful for a change.
There's only
Allegedly
one
in
solution.
Minecraft.
Where is the one solution?
Yes, that's why. Yeah, I need to have him all the time.
Yeah, but we'll pick something up again tomorrow will be the teen case. Jamie was trying to say, hey, have you seen that wife who unalived her husband down in, I think, Florida, maybe? And I said, I don't want to start a new one because I have all of this coming up. No, Indiana. IA is Indiana, or is it Idaho?
I think IA is Idaho. No, not Idaho,
Well,
Iowa.
Iowa. Karina Cooper. She was found on top of her husband, who had a third eye. They have her communications that I really want to unalive this effer. And it took them a year or something to arrest her. Sometimes justice don't work fast.
Well, that's like the Lori Vallow thing in Arizona. It took them so long to, put all the pieces together that, it was kind of like, does anyone believe that this was self-defense? But they were putting together a case.
Yeah. And the audio is horrible in that case too, so that you're not missing out on a lot. We're always going, that Serenative. We go longer than the Germans. Shouldn't say stuff like that right after we talk about that.
Well, especially with my entire thing, my easel fell down and I just threw the wooden people up. Because I was trying not to look like I'm an unholy mess.
Well, why hide who you really are? But everyone, go out, be a better person than the ones you have seen on screen, because we are horrible at everything we try to do. But we hope you liked it. If you're on my channel, please go over to Mo's channel and give her a likey poo and a little subscription, because she's
Because I got 6 kids to put through college and vocational school.
and she's a good egg. She has morning shows every morning with Mo, where you get the new of the news. I won't be leaving you with the Preppy trial. I will be covering it. It's going to be closing arguments tomorrow, and I should be able to cover the closing arguments, and then jury instruction is just the same stupid you hear every time. So that's not important, but the closing arguments should be okay. But everyone, go enjoy your life. Diddy got found guilty in 2 of the smaller ones. Kohberger pled guilty to all of it. And I'm going to go sit down because I'm sweating like a pig. Ciao.
Okie dokie.
What exhibit are you referring to?
I'm going to make this 100, Your Honor.
All right.
100.
100.
Because it is 100%
100%.
correct.
Objection, Your Honor.
So you literally built a cannon?
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
All right, I'm in love.
Go back. Please do that again. Oh, that was the cutest thing I've ever seen.
While I'm waiting for this, did you, whether it's true or not, believe that Mr. Randolph had slept with your wife?
I wouldn't have cared.
You wouldn't have cared?
No,
Did you believe he had slept with your wife?
no,
Did you believe he slept with your mother-in-law?
probably did. Everybody has.
So there-
Everybody has.